In this demo, we're going to be showcasing the compute to the data capabilities of Nevermind. Compute to the data is used for when data providers don't want to allow data consumers to simply download the data. Instead, they want to still monetize the data by allowing data consumers to just run generic computations over the data. So the setup that we're going to be using is the full Nevermind stack. So we will have blockchain running, and the blockchain will take care of settling all the payments and also allow us to verify access control to the data. We will have the data provider infrastructure that's going to be running the Nevermind compute stack, and we will have a data consumer that's going to buy access to the data and will also publish an algorithm that will then be downloaded by the data provider that's going to set up the execution environment. It's going to run the algorithm, and in the end it's going to publish the result of the computation as a new asset and make it available to the client. So for this demo, we're going to be using Apache Flink, and it's already a prepackaged Apache Flink application. It's a simple word count. So we're going to be showing the both sides, both the data provider and the data consumer. So the data provider will start by publishing the information or metadata about its data that it wants to monetize. Then we will have a data consumer that will discover these data sets and will decide to buy access to them. Afterwards, the data consumer will publish the algorithm and make it discoverable for the provider. The data provider will download the algorithm, will set up the execution environment, and will run the computation. And in the end, the data provider will publish the results of the computation and will make it available for the data consumer. For this demo, we're going to be using the Nevermind command line interface. So we're going to start by creating a new account. So we will make it this our main account, and we will set a password, call it secret, and a location where to store the account information. And then we're gonna request some Ether so that we can pay for the transaction fees. And then we're gonna request some Nevermind tokens so that we can actually pay for the compute to the data. So now that we have an account set up, we can go ahead and start using the Nevermind network. So as a data provider, the first thing that you need to do is to actually publish your data set, or not the actual data, but metadata related to the data set. So we're gonna publish a data set, and the service will be compute. So we don't want to allow data consumers to actually download the data. We just want to allow computations over the data. We're gonna set a price for the data set, let's say 1 token, title, author, date of creations, what's the content type, and then URLs to the actual data. So now as a data provider, I published my data set, and now as a data consumer, I somehow, through a marketplace, find that data set, write an algorithm for it, and now I want to run a computation over that data. So the first thing that we're going to do as a data consumer is to publish our algorithm. So we have a prepackaged jar file with our Flink job, and we're gonna call it word count, and we specify what's the language we're gonna use, and then the entry point specifies how the computation should be executed. So we start by starting the Flink cluster, and then we actually run our job, and the execution environment provides us two environment variables, the Nevermind inputs path and outputs path. So the inputs path is where the actual data set is located, and the output is where I should put any files that I want to be returned to me. So we also specify the container. So in this case, we want to use Flink 1.11 with Java 11, and then we specify the actual URL for our algorithm. Okay, now that our algorithm is actually published, we need to create a workflow, and the workflow basically will describe what are the inputs of the computation that I want to run, and what's the actual algorithm. So we create some metadata like before, and then we need to specify the inputs. And in our case, we have only one input, and that is the compute to the data sets. And we need to specify also the algorithm, which we call the transformation. And this would be this one. Okay, so now we have everything set up to run the computation, except we still need to pay for the compute to the data. So we will go ahead and order that. And we want to order this compute to the data. And we're going to specify what's the service we want. In our case, we want a compute service, which has a service index of 4. And that should be it. So we're ordering the assets. Okay, so we ordered the assets, the funds were correctly transferred, so we have a service agreement. Now we can use that to actually execute the computation. And we're gonna do that by calling the exec command, and again we give it the compute to the data ID, and we also need to give it the service agreement ID, which was the result of the payment, and we also need to give it the workflow that we want to execute. And the workflow was this one. Okay, so the execution started. We can maybe check the dashboard. So here is the computation starting, and we can, with the command line interface, we can also check the status of the computation. Again, we need to pass it the service agreement ID to make sure that we actually have the permissions to check the status of this computation. And we're gonna pass it the execution ID that we want to check, which is this one. And we can pass the follow flag so that it will keep checking the status until it's actually finished. So yeah, it actually succeeded. So the job is already finished, and we can see here that everything was finished. And now that we have the output, we can actually go ahead and just download it. So that's done with. So what is the command again? Download my asset. And we can pass it the ID. And the files were downloaded to that directory. We can check the results. So should be data file, and this is the result of the word count over the data set. And that's it.